Good morning guys, and welcome to El Salvador. Now El Salvador is my favorite country in all of Central America. It's a place that's got an endless supply of swell, a cobblestone strewn coastline that shapes all of that swell into various right-hand points and A-frame peaks. Yeah, in my opinion, it's just one of the best surf destinations in the world. So today we're going to be finding out everything you need to know about coming to El Salvador on a surf trip. So many different spots in this area alone, it's actually insane. Immediately to my right we've got El Sunzal, which is a real long, like real mellow right hand point. It's kind of a wave that's suitable for everyone. Kind of got beginners out there, intermediates, even for advanced surfers. You've got pretty fun, like wally, but albeit a little bit fat right hand walls. But it's super long, and if you can pick the right ones, you can still get away with like enough of a wall to like rip into it. And then just over to my left, past the iconic El Tunco Rock, you've got La Bocana. Now La Bocana is probably the most powerful wave in this little stretch. It's sort of an A-frame peak. It's where they have the ISA World Juniors recently. Real fun wave. It's, I guess, one of the only lefts in the area, and it's got a bit of a right off it as well, but it's mostly like an A-frame peak. Pretty powerful wave, very consistent, and yeah, being right here in town, it's really crowded as well. I don't actually love surfing out there just because the crowd's really intense and it's really focused on that one peak. I much prefer El Sunzal just because it's a bit of a longer, like more open playing field, and you can kind of, I've surfed it enough to like know which ones to pick, so you can find a bit more space out there. Then all around the coast there's so many different waves, which are basically just different takes on the right hand point break. But then the jewel in the crown of surfing in El Salvador is Punta Roca. Hope that kind of gave you a bit of a look into Punta Roca. It's a really sick wave, and that's basically like not even showing it at all. It's, I mean, there was like 6 or 7 people out, which is really sick, but that's not even like a shadow of what it can be. So yeah, it was only like shoulders to head high, but because there was no one out, it made it like pretty fun. Obviously it gets way better than that when there's a bit more swells. If you were to come here and, you know, just want to surf waves like that, you've basically got that on tap. But that was so sick then. I don't know why there was only like 5 or 6 people out. It's pretty crazy for out here, because I've surfed it a few times, but only surfed it with like 30 people plus. I mean, granted, this is probably the worst I've surfed it, but as you saw, it's still pretty surfable. But yeah, it's a really interesting wave. As you can see here, super long. Got like the top section up there, which when it's really good, it's like barreling and it's like real hollow and kind of shallow. The locals sort of dominate it, and then there's like slows up a little bit there for like turns. That was kind of where I was surfing, and then it like races through this middle section. It's kind of hard to make it through, and then it like slows down a little bit on the end again. Yeah, it's an incredible wave. So getting here is pretty straightforward as well. San Salvador Airport is not actually in San Salvador. It's like actually closer to here, like El Tunco and La Libertad. So from here it's about a 45-minute to an hour drive away, which makes it pretty accessible. You can get, generally you can get taxi transfers for $30 to $40. That's kind of like the going rate. It might change a little bit depending on who's taking you. If you're coming from elsewhere in Central America, you're on the bus, you're doing a bit of a budget mission. Basically, you just want to aim for San Salvador, like the city, and then La Libertad. Yeah, there's loads of public buses in El Salvador, so they're pretty easy to get. They're usually pretty accommodating with surfboards as well. That said, it's also pretty hectic getting them. You know, lugging like a big surfboard bag on an already too crowded bus is always pretty fun, but they do accept them most of the time. But getting the local buses just along this stretch is really, really cheap. Like, for example, I took the bus the other day from El Zonte to La Libertad to surf Punta Roca, and it costs like 45 cents, which is pretty sick. Granted, I did have to stand up and like clutch my surfboard like this the whole time, but it was pretty funny. It's pretty good value for money, to be honest. So yeah, getting around, I mean, if you're staying in El Tunco, or if you're staying in any of the zones really, you'll be able to just walk out front and surf. So getting around on foot is pretty doable. The only time you need other means of transport is if you're wanting to go and surf some of the other waves, which, you know, if you're staying in El Tunco and want to go surf Punta Roca, you'll have to get down there either by bus, or you can rent mopeds here for around $25 a day. You might be able to negotiate a bit of a better deal as well. If you're here for a long time, you can also get rental cars. The roads are, you know, pretty good around here. It's just kind of this one highway that goes along the road, so if you've got the money, moped or a car is definitely the best way to get around. Otherwise, you can definitely make do on foot and taking the bus. That's what I always do. I always seem to have no money when I come here. So as you'd expect for a surf town such as this, there's so many different options in terms of accommodation, kind of whatever your budget. There's a few like cheaper hostels that aren't amazing, but you know, they give you a room for $20 a night or so, which isn't super cheap compared to a lot of other Central American countries. It's definitely gotten a little bit more expensive here, even in the last 2 years since I last came here. I've definitely noticed it. I'll leave some links to some of the better accommodation throughout this area down in the description. I'm staying at a place called Hostel Niña Oli at the minute. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's the colours are a bit suspect, makes your head explode, but it's yeah, just a basic room, and it's around $25 per night, so it's nothing special, but it's all right. Like, I'm just here for another week, so it'll do the job until then. Usually I like to stay at a hostel called Papaya. Over there you can get a dorm room and breakfast for around $15 per night. Quite a nice hostel as far as hostels go, and it's in a really good location. But also there's some more like plush upmarket accommodations as well. You know, there's places like right on the point at Sunzal, and you know, on that beachfront bit, which are amazing to stay, but I've just never been able to afford it. Obviously here it's really, really crowded. You know, with a name like Surf City, it's, you know, the El Salvadorian government has done a big marketing job on trying to promote this place to make it into that world-renowned surf destination. You know, years ago they had a lot of problems regarding like the safety and crime rate here, and I'm not complaining about the crowds because obviously I am the crowd as well. But yeah, Sunzal, Punta Roca when it's good, Bacana, basically always have 30, 40 plus people out every morning. And there's loads of waves as well, so although it's really crowded, it's really, really consistent. There's basically always waves between April and October. You definitely have some frustrating surfs if you're here for a long time, but it's also kind of not a problem because there's definitely windows and there's so many waves and so much swell. Touched on it already, but the safety. So El Salvador used to be one of the most dangerous countries in the world, let alone in Latin America. It had, I think in 2015 it had the highest homicide rate on the planet, but basically the government went in and basically arrested anybody associated with the gangs. They had this huge crackdown on it and basically eliminated most of the crime, and now it's one of the safest countries in Latin America. It's definitely a safe place to come, especially in this El Tunco area. You'll feel safe walking around at night and stuff. I mean, you still got to be careful of like petty crime, but that just goes without saying. In terms of food, they've got pretty good food here. In El Tunco you'll find restaurants and you can basically just eat whatever you want. There isn't like a crazy amount of choice. Like for the most part, you'll just be eating like traditional dishes, either like rice, beans, chicken, that kind of thing. But the real hallmark of Salvadorian food is pupusas. And pupusas are these like, basically like a savory pancake kind of thing with like cheese, chicken in it. It's got like, you can have whatever filling you want in it, but they fry them up in these little circles, and they cost $1 a piece, which is sick. So just order like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of them, and that'll do you for a meal. So you can definitely eat quite cheap, and those prices haven't changed since I first came here. So yeah, that's a bit of an overview look at this area. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope it's given you some useful tips and information on making a trip here happen. Thanks as always for all of the support. Please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next episode.